My name is Walt Everett. Unlike many of the other people on the panel, I've never been in prison. Unless you count the 50 or so prisons I have visited as I visit incarcerated people, I've come to know that that's my ministry these days. A lot of it began when, a little over 30 years ago, my son was murdered in Bridgeport, Connecticut by a man who was high on drugs and alcohol. He was on a 3-day binge and he was not finished until he killed my son. And when the police came, he was arrested, but he was bailed out. And he was out on the streets again for about 10 months. Meanwhile, I got a call from the state's attorney who said, "We've come to a plea bargain over your son's death." Okay, what are the terms? He had been charged with homicide. We reduced it to manslaughter. He will plead guilty, and he'll get a sentence of 10 years suspended after 5. 5 years for killing my son? You think that's fair? He said, "I know you don't like it, but in the first place, the state prosecutes. You're just a bystander. My own son. Secondly, we don't have it as tight a case as we would like. The police did a shoddy investigation. I lived for almost a year with intense rage, unable to function as I should. I kept praying, God, how do I get out of this rage?" At the sentencing of Mike, some 11 months after Scott's death, the judge asked me if I had anything I wanted to say. I stood and spoke for probably 15 minutes. I have no recollection of what I said. When the judge asked Mike if he had anything to say, he stood and spoke against his attorney's advice. I remember distinctly every word he said. "I'm sorry I killed Scott Everett. I wish I could bring him back. I know these probably sound like empty words to the Everetts, but I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry," and he sat down. And at that point, it was as though God nudged me and said, "You've got to respond to that." I didn't know how I was going to respond. I didn't want to go visit him. The state probably wouldn't let me do that. But maybe I could write him a letter. Even that I had problem with, because I'm a procrastinator. I didn't want to do it. I knew I had to select a particular time and day to write the letter. So I did it on the exact anniversary of Scott's death. I sat down and wrote, "Dear Mike," and then I told him of all the rage I had over the past year. I spent a page and a half telling him of my feelings, and then I finally said, "Having said all of that, I want to first thank you for what you said in the court. Secondly, I want to say, in response to that, I forgive you. As hard as those words are to write, I forgive you." Believe me, they're the hardest words I ever wrote. I finished by telling him something of God's love and forgiveness, and then invited him to write back. But I said, "If you don't want to do that, I'll understand." 3.5 weeks later, I hadn't heard from him. Then I went away on vacation, and I got a call from my daughter. "Dad, there's a letter here from Carlucci." "Really? That's good. Why would he write to you?" "Well, maybe he's answering my letter." "You wrote him? Why did you write to him?" "Remember what he said in court on the day he was sentenced?" "Yes." "Well, I felt I had to respond to him." "May I open his letter?" "No." "Why not?" "To whom is it addressed?" "You." "Then you know why you did not open the letter, right?" Oh, come on, Dad, please wrap me around her little finger. But I finally convinced her. If she would wait till I got home, I'd let her read the letter. I got home, she read the letter, we stood and cried together. I got a letter a couple of months later. Would you come visit me? I didn't want to do that, but I knew I had to. I began to visit, and 2 years after I was visiting, he asked me if I would speak on his behalf before the parole board. That was not a hard decision because by that time I had seen a tremendous change in him. I spoke on his behalf. He came out in less than 3 years. And he's now a functioning member of society, giving back what has been given to him. He's a new person. Thank you.